Good to see you. Hope that you've had a wonderful, wonderful day. Concerning the Happy Haven banquet, if you do want to go to that and see the quilt auction and things of that nature and help support that cause, just be sure and see me by tonight because I have to make sure for the tables. And also, after service, if you'd like to come up and see the quilt and the quilt coats that the young girls and the young ladies have prepared, everywhere from, I think, 8 years old to 88 years old. I think that's right, I believe, has helped to do that. I think there's 5 quilt coats and a quilt, a farm girl quilt. So come up and look at that. And that's not your standard Dolly Parton coat of many colors either. That's a pretty hot item right there. So come bid on it if you'd like to have that. So Blake, you look good in one of them quilt coats. You can come out and bid on that. But they did a wonderful job, and a lot of work went into that, and I know that goes to a great cause to help out. So if you can help support that, I know it'll be greatly, greatly appreciated. The main job Jesus left us to do was to make disciples. And I've been thinking about this a lot since I listened to a sermon not long ago about discipleship and about commitment. And when you think about discipleship, there's a difference between just obeying the gospel and truly becoming a disciple. And you say, well, there's no difference in that. Well, I think sometimes we make that distinction by our actions, and I think maybe it's because we don't truly understand what a disciple is. There's no such thing as an instant disciple, I don't believe. And you say, well, when you become a Christian, you become a disciple. I think that takes commitment, it takes work, it takes a process to truly commit our lives to Christ. I mean, you think about it. We live in a culture to where a lot of things are instant. And, I mean, take, for example, you take some powdered eggs and add water to it, you can have eggs. You take some powdered orange juice and add water to it, you can have orange juice. You take, you've got these powdered things that you can have, and it instantly makes something. And I think what we believe when it comes to disciples, if we add a little baptismal water, automatically snap, we become a disciple. And that's just not the case. Now, does the Lord add us to the church through that? Absolutely. Do we become a child of God? Absolutely. But we have to be committed our lives and really think about what that means to be a disciple of Christ. And it takes effort and it takes work and it's a process. And I think that maybe should have been one of our church problems, Titus, on Wednesday nights is, maybe we don't look at discipleship as we should to really be committed. Think about this. We can go to Luke 14, and we will in just a moment, and read this. But he talks about and gives us clues. Well, not clues. He comes right out and tells us what being a disciple means. And it's just like when we've all heard the story. Remember when the church, the farmer and his wife come home from church, and they were talking about, we're going to have this fellowship meal. We're going to do this for us all to contribute something so we can give to the hungry. Well, the animals overheard it, and the chicken told the pig, said, me and you're going to contribute to that some ham and eggs. And they thought about it for a little bit, and the pig said, wait a minute. To you, it's just a contribution. To me, it's a total commitment. He said, we're going to have to rethink this a little bit. And I think that's what we have to realize, and I think that's what Jesus is talking about here in Luke chapter 14 is it's not just a contribution that we make as far as, I'll contribute my time here, or I'll contribute my money here, or I'll give just a little bit here. And it is these things, but it's so much more than that. It's a total commitment. We give our lives to Christ. That's the kind of commitment that it is. And as he goes through Luke chapter 14 here, he describes what discipleship is. And there's 5, straight out telling us this is what a disciple is. And let's go through and read it, and then we'll go through it in a little bit and look at these things. Starting in verse 25, he says, now great multitudes went with him, And he turned and said to them, now notice what he says, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and his mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, his own life also, cannot be my disciple. There's clue number one. Look at verse 27. And whoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Number two. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it, and lest after he has laid the foundation and not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Number three there. Or what king, going to make war against another king, does not sit down first and consider whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is still a great way off, he sends a delegation and asks conditions of peace. So likewise, whoever does not forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple. There's number four. It says, salt is good, but if the salt has lost its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is neither fit for the land nor for the dunghill, but men throw it out. There's number five. And he who has ears to hear, let him hear. See, people choose to come to Jesus on several different levels of intimacy. And I think here's how it plays out. You've got those that it's like different circles as you come into that center circle. You've got those on the outside who they don't care anything about God. They know who Jesus is. They know who God is. They hear references. They may pop into a worship service every now and again, and that's it. So you've got that level of commitment, which is pretty well nothing. Then you've got the other commitment, which goes a little deeper, even within a congregation. They congregate with people. Somebody may congregate here at Center Grove one Sunday. Some may congregate at another congregation another Sunday. They may congregate. They kind of congregate around, but they're not committed to any one particular place or any one particular thing. They just like congregating at times. Then it can go down to the church or congregation level to where, okay, that person has committed to a local congregation under a local eldership to be part of that congregation, but yet that's as far as it goes. I'm part of this congregation. I'm here every time the door is open, but that's pretty much as far as it goes. Then you have, within that group, you have another level of commitment to those individuals who said, I'm not only going to commit to this local congregation, I've committed my whole life to Christ. Whatever I can do within that congregation to help individuals within that congregation, whatever I can do to help myself grow, whatever I can do to help someone else grow, whatever I can do to help evangelize and bring others in that's outside of this circle, to bring them into that circle. Because sometimes it's easier to bring them that's outside of that circle into the main circle than it is to get someone who's just here to go a little more committed. It's discipleship. It's giving all that we have to the cause of Christ. So as Jesus breaks down this commitment, or this level of commitment, let's notice what he says. Let's start back at verse 26. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and his mother, wife and children, brother and sisters, yes, his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. The first and foremost, to be a disciple of Christ, we have to put him before anything else. Now, people will read that and they will say, this doesn't make any sense, because Jesus says in a lot of other passages that we're to love one another. Matter of fact, we're even to love our enemies. And now he says we have to hate our family in order to be a disciple of his? Well, what is he talking about here? He's talking about, we can get into all the Greek words of it's really talking about prefer over, but he's using hyperbole here. He's using an exaggeration. And we all do this. We as parents use this. Hadn't I told you 1,000,000 times to pick up them toys? What do you think we've actually told them 1,000,000 times? Or husbands, we know what it is. Our wife says, I've told you 1,000,000 times to do this. Well, you may have told me 500,000 times, but we know it's not been 1,000,000 times. So we understand what, and Jesus uses these things here too. It's not to diminish it. He's saying you've got to put everything above, or put me above everything. Now that almost seems hard to think about. But if you think about it in those terms, if our relationship with Jesus is what it's supposed to be, our relationship with our family is going to be what it's supposed to be. It's going to be right in order as it was. Our relationship with each other within a congregation, within the brotherhood, within the church itself is going to be what it should be. But our first and foremost priority is putting that relationship with Christ first. That means we've got to be disciplined. We've got to be a disciple. We've got to realize I'm giving all to this. All to this. Every time I think about being a disciple, I think about, it's been many years ago now being in India and talking to some of the brethren there and me asking a stupid question of many that I asked while I was there. I was talking to a couple of them while we were riding in the car off to this, I don't know, some jungle till 2 o'clock in the morning. But I remember saying, here's me riding in the back of the car. So what do y'all do for fun? What do you do for fun? That was my question to them. You know, what do you do for hobbies in your spare time? They looked at me like I was nuts. They're like, what? I don't understand the question. I said, when you're not, preaching or you're not studying or you're not doing some of this, what do you do for fun? They didn't understand the question. Their whole life revolved around that. That don't mean they spent every day with their nose in a Bible, but everything was to the purpose of serving Christ and bringing others to Him. That was their hobby. That was their entertainment. That was their life. No matter if they was working somewhere, no matter if they were out just over here standing and talking, everything was about that. So I rode another hour there, just over there thinking, I might as well just jump out of the car. I mean, I was embarrassed even asking the question now, because I was getting ready to tell them everything that I enjoyed doing, and I didn't open my mouth about that. What does it take to have that kind of commitment? As Jesus telling that rich young girl, that lawyer there, sell all and follow me. What is He telling him? You're still holding on to something. You still got something that's above me. You can't have anything above me. He wasn't telling him that he couldn't have anything. He's telling him his priorities couldn't be above him. That's what a disciple is. That's what's getting involved with each other and being a disciple of Christ. It takes that kind of commitment. So are we willing to give that kind of commitment? We all need to ask ourselves as we go through this lesson, what part of that circle am I in? At what level of commitment have I made? And my level of commitment is not how long I've been a Christian. My level of commitment is not how many times I walked through that door, that door, or that door. That's not my level of commitment. That's part of my commitment, but that doesn't determine how committed I am. I've got to ask myself, what have I given over to Him? Have I given all to Him? Matthew 10:22 says, and you will be hated by all for my name's sake, but he who endures to the end will be saved. Matthew 10:37, he who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son and daughter more than me is not worthy of me. That just sounds harsh. I always say I put my family, I've always been a circle the wagon type person. I put my family above anything and would do anything to protect my family. But I have to do it within the parameters of Jesus comes first, far and above that. And the reason I feel the way I do about my family and want to take care of my family is because of the love I do have for Him. I've got to make sure it's in perspective. And I've got to make sure that I'm willing to, because many people go through this, that their families aren't jumping up and down because they became a Christian. They're not excited about it. They may be upset about it. They may be even to the point to say, well, you're not part of this family anymore. Most of us don't have to endure that a lot. There's several of us that do. That it changes your family dynamic when you become a child of God. So what level of commitment are we willing to give? Are we willing to give that kind of commitment? And I tell you, when we think about the struggles or heartaches that come along with those things, I try to always go back to one thing when I get so overwhelmed with I just can't believe, I know this is the right thing to do, but look at all the repercussions because of this. Or look at what's happening because of this, and it just doesn't seem fair. When we look at that, and the reason we're looking at it like that, or it is for me, because this world is all that I'm thinking of. What I'm going through right now, or what I may have to endure the rest of my life because of the decision I make, I'm only thinking about right now in this world. But this world is not my home. What's the song say? I'm just a passing through. I've got treasures somewhere else. My citizenship is somewhere else. That's what I'm looking forward to, that eternity, not just the time that I'm here. And when it comes to people to ridicule us maybe or want to shun us because we have chose Christ over that, well, you won't have to go looking for them. As the Bible tells us, they'll come find you. But we have to be willing to put Him first. Now notice verse 27. And he says, whoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. The image Jesus used is a cross. A real disciple is someone who carries his cross. Now, I think here's where it might become confusing to us, because when we think of a cross, we think of a piece of jewelry, we think of a picture on our Bibles. We think of cross in these terms. It's kind of become benign to us. It doesn't really mean much to us. But think about the cross. The cross is a horrible picture. Now, the resurrection and all that is the grand finale. It's the wonder and the glory of it. But how Jesus got to that is horrible. I mean, how many of us would say, hey, have you seen my bracelet or my new necklace? It's a new version of the electric chair we've got now. You want to see it? Or here, I've got a syringe full of poison here on my bracelet or on my necklace. You want to see that? It's a new version that's out there. That's really what we're doing when we're thinking of the cross. And it was a horrible form of execution. And Jesus says, I've got to take up my cross. I've got to be willing to die. I have died to my life. I'm carrying my cross. I'm going to my death of my will, of my wants, of how I think it ought to be. I'm putting that to death. I'm a dead man walking. That's what people would think if they seen someone carrying a cross, or if they seen a cross going out to where, that's what they were thinking. Somebody's going to die. So Jesus says here, I've got to be willing to bear that cross. I've got to be willing to do that. Notice how Paul puts it in Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. He says, I've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave Himself for me. Galatians 5 and verse 24. And those who are Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and its desires. Galatians 6 and verse 14. But God forbid that I should boast except in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom the world has been crucified to me, and I to the world. The world has been crucified to me. The world is not what's important to me. I've died to that. And that's almost strange to say. I've died to the world. These things are no longer what my priority is. My own desires, my own wills. That's why Paul says, walk in the Spirit, not in the flesh. Don't walk carnally. It's not about these things, because if we still want to try to hold on to these things, we'll never fully be committed to Christ. If we still try to hold on to our own wills. I tell you, I think it's safe to say every hard scripture that we think is hard to follow, I think is simply because we're still holding on to the flesh. We know truly what the answer is to it. You know, when it comes to changing their lives or living their lives certain ways, and we think that's just hard. It's because we're still wanting to hold on to it. If we would truly die to it, it's actually freedom. It's actually be liberation. That's what Jesus says. I'm freeing you from that bondage. You're no longer bound to that. You're no longer in darkness. You're actually walking in the light now. It's a horrible thing to be put to death, but it's a wonderful thing to be alive and free. But that's what we have to do. And he says, to be my disciple, he says, you've got to be willing to take up your cross. You've got to be willing to bear that cross. It's got to mean something to you and understand what it means. So I've got to be willing to forsake all. I've got to be willing to die to all in order to be His disciple. So think about it. Ask yourself as we've got this far, am I truly a disciple? I tell you, even me getting up this lesson and thinking about this, I had to stop and say, have I done that? Have I truly done that? And he just lays it out for us here and tells us how to do it. That means, again, there's nothing in this world that can offer me what Jesus can. Nothing in this world can free me like He can. I have to be totally devoted to Him. Then if you look at verse 28, are we having issues over? Are we back up? Okay, I didn't know. I just kept going. I let you do your thing. But notice what he says beginning at verse 28. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it? Lest after he has laid the foundation, is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Jesus here presents the image of a man who plans on building a tower, and before he begins construction, he's got to count the cost to see if he has enough resources to finish the job. Now, I hope I can explain this like I'm thinking in my head. I don't believe Jesus is talking about salvation here. I don't think He's talking about, do I have, because I can't do enough to earn my salvation. I've got to do what He says to do, but I can't do enough to earn my salvation. He's talking about the value that I place on discipleship. Am I willing to give all? Which ultimately has something to do with my salvation, of course. But am I willing to give it? I've got to sit down and think about it. Am I truly willing to be a disciple? Because that's what I'm doing. That's what the Great Commission said to do. Go out and make disciples of all nations. Baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Teaching them to observe all things that I've commanded you. And lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the world. Matthew 28. When you think about what he says, what's it take to make a disciple? You know, it's counting that cost. It's realizing you're making a commitment. This choice that you make here, you know, we actually say that when someone's being baptized or something. We say, you know, this commitment that you're making is the greatest decision that you'll ever make. And it absolutely is. But we got to make sure we're thinking of what that decision is. Thinking about the commitment that's involved. And for some people, the cost is sometimes a little greater than others. But are we willing to do it? And I think that's why the structure of the church is what it is, to support each other in being that disciple that we should be, encouraging each other to be that, helping each other to be that, being that hand up to be that disciple because they're struggling with that commitment that the world is pulling so much. Have I counted the cost? Have I really looked to see if I have what it takes to do that? Philippians 1 and verse 6 says, being confident of this very thing, that He who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. He's going to give us all the tools necessary. He's going to give us what we need to accomplish it. That's why He went through it, so He can say, I went through it for you. Jesus gave all, didn't He? He bore it all. He gave it all. He went through it all. So we can do that. So we can look to Him and say, He's that example. He showed me this is what you do. But you have to count the cost to see if we're willing to truly give our lives to Him. Look at verse 31. Or what king going to make war against another king does not sit down first and consider whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is still a great way off, he sends a delegation and asks conditions of peace. So likewise, whoever of you does not forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple. So here he's describing a king. One is outnumbered, so he wisely approaches the stronger king and make peace before the battle ever begins. You and I are one of these kings, and God is one of these kings. Guess which one God is? God's the one that's going to win the battle. God's the one that has the most. God is the one there. We can't outdo God, so we're the one that needs to come to Him and make some peace. But to do that, you have to surrender to Him. You have to surrender we have to be submissive to Him. Are we willing to do that? Are we willing to be submissive? It's like a story I heard one time, and I thought it was kind of weird, but then as I got to thinking about it, I thought, hey, that, you know how preachers do, that'll preach. This lifeguard noticed someone that was out struggling, that he knew he's going to have to go out and get, that they looked like they were going to drown. So he goes to the water, and he goes a little bit in the water, and he just stands there. And he's watching this man struggle. The crowd that's on the beach here is screaming at this lifeguard, he's drowning, go save him, he's drowning. Lifeguard goes a little farther in the water and just watches this man just frail and struggle, and he's doing everything he can to stay above water, and the lifeguard is starting to get a little closer to he's about to have to go swim. He's got so far out, and the crowd is screaming at this lifeguard, you've got to save him, you've got to save him. And then finally the man quits struggling, and the lifeguard goes, gets him, pulls him up on the beach, gets him back going okay. And the crowd is mad at him. They're not, saying he's a hero. They're upset with him. He said, I watched that man as he was frail, and as long as he was trying to save himself, I couldn't help him. He drowned both of us. I had to wait till he was willing to need help for me to go and save him. And I thought about that. Isn't that what we have to do? As long as we think we can save ourselves, as long as we think we can do it, and we still frail and fight and fuss and do all of these things, I've got it, what really can God do for me? Can He do anything? Until I'm willing to give up, He can't save me. Till I'm willing to be saved, He can't do it. Till I'm willing to follow Him, He can't lead. I've got to submit to Him. But that takes me, again, going back to what Jesus already said, I've got to count the cost of that. I've got to be willing to die for that. I've got to be willing to put everything below Him and make Him my priority. That's what true submission is. That's what true submission. And I like the order in which he puts it here, because I think it puts it in perspective for us that we have to submit. But many times we're not willing to do that. Look at verse 34. It says, salt is good, but if the salt has lost its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is neither fit for the land nor for the dunghill, but men throw it out. Now, salt was a very valuable commodity during Jesus' time. Actually, Roman soldiers, there's a Greek term for it, they were actually given money to buy salt so they could buy other things. That was their salary. Matter of fact, the original Greek term of it, that's where we get our term salary. And that's where you hear someone say, well, they're not worth their salt. That's where that term comes from. In other words, they're not worthy of paycheck. They're not worthy of salary. They ain't done anything to get it. That's what Jesus said. If we have lost our ability to be salt, we're not preserving, we're not valuable, we're not doing what He needs to do, we're just fit to be thrown out. What purpose do we serve? Have we lost our saltiness, as it were? What good is salt if it doesn't do what it's supposed to do? And I think that's what he's saying here at the end. If you're not willing to be a disciple, then what are you? If we're not a follower and a learner, then what are we? Are we just a coasting through Christian? we just a kind of mundane Christian? Are we just a sit on the pew Christian? I mean, whatever term we want to call it. But what he's really saying is, you want to be a disciple or not? You want to follow me or not? This is what it takes. You know, we always say, I wish he'd just tell us straight out, is this what we're supposed to do? Here it is. You know, in Galatians, he gives us the works of the flesh. Don't do those things. He gives us the fruit of the Spirit. Be this kind of person. Here he says, this is how you become a disciple, and this is how you are a disciple. Just follow these things. So again, as we think about that circle as they're closing in to the level of commitment, where are you? Where am I on this level of commitment? I don't think we're on the outside. But we could be very well on the inside, but not shown any commitment. Now, I'm not talking about busy work. I'm not talking about staying busy as a Christian. I'm talking about true discipleship that means something, that we're doing something and helping someone with a purpose and following Him. That example that He set. Look at the encouragement that He gave, the teaching that He gave, the evangelism that He did. Look at all the things that He did. All of those things He's saying. This is what discipleship is. It's being involved. It's doing something. It's all of us walking in this light together. You know, sometimes we think, well, you know, He said it's a difficult road. It's a narrow gate. So that narrow gate's easy. I'm going to just make sure I'm getting in there. I ain't worried about anything else. Well, if we don't worry about anything else, I don't think we have to worry about ourselves. But Jesus tells us how to be a disciple. So, are we a real disciple? Do we want to move from being in this part of the circle to into the inner part of the circle? Are we dead men walking? Can others see us bear our cross? Can they see the commitment that we made? Can they see us forsaking all? Can they see these things in our lives? Because that's what Jesus said about the builder. He said the world can see that. The world can see them and say, oh look, they started building. Why'd they quit? We can see it here in our congregation. The world can see it. There's others that started building. They quit building. They're no longer building no more. Where'd they go? What are they doing? Did they not count the cost? Did we not help them? Discipleship is a serious matter. And that's what Jesus calls us to be. So if you're here this evening, evaluate your life, whether you're a disciple or not. And I'll just ask simply before we sing our invitation song, if you're not a disciple, Jesus tells you how to be. He tells you what you need to do. Are you willing to make that commitment by forsaking all and do what He says to do, to be a child of His, and do what He says to do to live that faithful life for Him?